to attempt to create so much havoc that the country falls into civil war and is ripped apart before we have a chance to unify against them and discover the truth. But it's not going to work. This was the deep state plan. This was what was in store for us. They were going to put us in camps, using our to shake people out of their apathy. But the election system, the entire establishment, the entire deep state is going to be exposed by themselves. Really, they're exposing themselves. And that's the brilliance of the white hat plan, is they outsmarted and outmaneuvered the cabal and had them basically destroy themselves. Trump and the alliance are sitting back and allowing the American people to witness the self-destruction of the establishment and their uncloaking of their true identity. They're showing people who they really are. And they're using, but that's a topic for another show. Now, as the scientific forensic audit results loom, what we're witnessing is a full court press to get every major city primed for violence all over again. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. Because again, the cabal always uses different variations of the same playbook, but the main objective is to cause enough chaos to deflect attention away from them to prevent the unification of the people. Because the deep state, they know the storm that's coming. And that's why they're making preparations for what's coming. And if you understand the real paradigm, then you can understand what you're seeing on mainstream media. You can understand what's unfolding. Know the destination, and you'll understand the journey, as the great David Icke says. I mean, Trump has countered them brilliantly at every turn. He countered their, and of course they had to, because of Trump's counter moves, they had to then accelerate even more and make their agenda even more obvious. And I've maintained my contention that this is all a scripted movie, and that most of the cabal has been decimated, although it certainly doesn't appear on the surface to be the case. But I do believe that the military has drastically reduced the capacity of the cabal to operate. But that's not to suggest that the fight against them is over, that they don't have any teeth, as Gene said. They still do. They're very resource-oriented, as he pointed out. And again, they've been in control for thousands and thousands of years. So, of course, they still have a whole bunch of resources, i.e. weapons, at their disposal that need to be taken seriously. And their major weapon, or one of their major weapons, is the control of the narrative for the ignorant public. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, go back and listen to Gene and I's interviews, and you'll understand. I think it was our second interview where he really broke this for the first time. At least I think it was the first time he had ever really discussed it. And I think he verified that actually last time we spoke. It was the first time he had ever really revealed what was really going on with the thing that goes in your arm. So if you don't really understand or know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the second interview and my subsequent analysis of it as well. And this is why I love Gene Decode, for one of the many reasons. I mean, his insight is so valuable, because without this explanation of the real tactics, at least for me, very little of Trump's moves would really make sense. In fact, the only way his actions would make sense is if what Gene is saying is true, and I believe that to be the case. And I've made it clear that I don't think that there's any way that Trump got duped here. I mean, on the surface, he pushed wanted to. Millions of people would have died. Billions even. And of course, that was the plan. So, of course, he had to push Operation. And, of course, in order to avoid, pushed these through to get emergency authorization use, knowing that that would then give the people out there who are awake a choice. And it's a difficult decision, as we've talked about. But people need to understand, and they need to remember that, once again, like I said, we're at war. and that all options for preventing the complete destruction of humanity had to be on the table. And that includes the deception of the general public. Of course, the weapons we're talking about here would be the sleeping army, millions of Mark Ultras out there, who at any moment could be triggered and cause the world to just go up in flames within a few hours. And so, of course, they needed to take drastic measures to counter this threat. And then, of course, is that emergency authorization use can only be authorized if there's really no other known cure. But the reality of this evil plot is already rearing its ugly head. I was listening to Charlie Ward and Mel K, their most recent discussion, and he said, I haven't verified this yet, but he said that to date, people are dying, folks. And this is only the beginning. Just wait to see how bad it gets over the next several months. And yet, despite that, you've got a president, Donald Trump, who every time he's appearing publicly now, he's appearing more and more confident. His body language is really exuding this sense of being in complete control. And rumor has it that Trump has been having frequent meetings with the members of his cabinet. And rumor also has it that Arizona has finished the audit, with the Senate Republicans leading the way, and that the results will be coming out very, very soon. Literally, folks, it could be any moment now. Are they still blocking things and so forth? Yes, but they know they've basically come to a conclusion. And of course, we're hearing more and more about how Georgia, things are even more wild and crazy there. And the evidence of just outright fraud and criminality is emerging more and more every single day. And people understand that their voice was stolen at every single level, not just at the presidency level, but every level at the ballot box, every level of elected office. This has been going on for decades. And people are beginning to understand that their vote is not their own. And it hasn't been their own. And that Dominion and Smartmatic have been choosing their leaders. They've been choosing their leaders, not our leaders. We've never really had a choice, folks. And eventually, Charlie's, and I've heard more people than Charlie Ward say this, that Trump actually won every state. And we'll find out, but it wouldn't surprise me. More and more truth is coming out. Gaddafi's son was said to be killed by the deep state. Turns out he's alive and helping run the country. Amnesty International comes out with a report saying that America is really not a racist country. It's one of the least racist countries in the world. And the UN is saying our society is so racist that it needs investigation and intervention. People are seeing this. You got Germany and Mexico being a war crime, like I pointed out. I even posted on my Telegram a document from the CDC website talking about putting on of their final assault by the alliance to bring us to that near-death experience. And you've got Hollywood continuing to implode. You got the MSM continuing to lose control of their narrative. You've got big tech continuing to expose their hostility towards we the people and using our tax dollar funded technology against us to silence our free speech, to curtail our rights. And they're moving at warp speed, trying to do every single thing that they can at the highest levels to prevent the truth from coming out, even though they know ultimately the only thing that they can do is delay it. Because it's only going to be a matter of days, weeks, at this point, perhaps weeks, but I doubt it, before we get the Ghislaine Maxwell case that will blow the entire operation of human trafficking wide open. And of course, expose the Satanism of the cabal as well. Everybody knows that any moment now, this whole thing could kick off. Anyone that's in the know, I should say. And you know, real patriots, and I'm talking to my audience, We'd rather die than watch human trafficking continue on our watch. We'd rather die than let freedom die on our watch. We're willing to go all the way because we trust God completely. Or if we don't, we're at least working on the ability to trust God completely, to get closer to our Creator. But I'm telling you, when people realize that taxpayers all over the world, and especially at the southern border, on an industrial scale, hardcore pedophilia, devil worship, child sacrifice, the A drug, I mean, this world is going to explode in anger. The public demands for justice are going to be unlike anything that we have ever witnessed in history. And the military tribunals will be released to the public. I genuinely think that that's coming sooner rather than later. We're going to find out about these tribunals that we've been hearing about.